Mary Elizabeth Iturralde with Creating Conversations in Redondo Beach in Southern California. And apparently I'm incapable of speaking correctly, so good thing I'm moderating. I am delighted to welcome you all to this manifestation of Cozy Con, which has been a lovely tradition that Kensington has put on for its cozy mystery authors in pre-pandemic times, and which has now manifested into the Cozy Mystery Road Trip. It kicked off this morning with our friends at Fountain Books in Virginia and toured through Murder by the Book in Texas. And I welcome you to the final event of the day, which is our paranormal and supernatural cozy mysteries event here with Creating Conversations. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our authors, and because bookseller, they will be introduced in alphabetical order by last name. Also, I'm sad to share that unfortunately, Sharon is not able to join us. Sharon Pape has had a unexpected family conflict and will not be able to join us today, but she will, we hope, be with us at a future occasion. So Bethany Blake is the author of the Owl Crescent Mysteries and the Lucky Paws Petsitting Mystery Series. She lives in a small, quaint town in rural Pennsylvania with her husband, three daughters, a fearsome feline, an attack cardinal, a blind goldfish, and a soulful dog with a discerning palate, which is highly entertaining because most dogs I know are not at all selective. So welcome, Bethany. And our local author for this event, Agatha Award-winning author Daryl Wood Gerber, writes the French Bistro Mysteries as well as the best-selling Cookbook Nook Mysteries. And she also writes as Avery Aames, but she is actually here today for the first in her fairy garden mysteries. So welcome, Daryl. And a fun tidbit about Daryl is that she appeared in Murder, She Wrote. Like Bethany, she has a dog. She has a frisky Goldendoodle named Sparky who keeps her in line. And Carol J. Perry. Carol is the author of more than 20 traditionally published books, which makes me think that there may be more not traditionally published. She was born on Halloween Eve in Salem, Massachusetts, and has used that magical city as a background for her long-running Witch City Mystery series. She lives in the Tampa Bay area of Florida with her husband and one spoiled cat. And Kitty may or may not make an appearance. Kitty was visible earlier. So welcome, Carol. Traci Wilton is a pseudonym of two of our panelists, Traci Hall and Patrice Wilton. Patrice is the New York Times and USA bestselling author of more than 20 books, some indie published and some published by Montlake. And Traci is the USA Today bestselling author of more than 50 books, published independently as well as by Medallion Press and Sam Hain Publishing. And together they have also started a witch-oriented supernatural series. So I didn't want to say too much initially about your current works because my first question to you is going to be, this is the paranormal and supernatural leg of the trip. So can you talk a little about how your current work or current series fits in that? And we're going to start with Bethany, please.
Hey everybody, so this is my first paranormal cozy mystery. My Lucky Paws mysteries are just regular people. Actually, I have written some paranormal for young adults under a different name, under the name Beth Fantasky. So this was really a natural fit for me to write a witch cozy, and it was just something that interested me. I like the idea of being able to bend the rules of time and space a little bit and have fun with it. So that was really the genesis of my book.
Thank you. And Daryl, talk about fairies, please.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Hi, I believe mine is the only series that features a fairy. I think the others feature witches, but my sidekick is a fairy. My protagonist owns a fairy garden shop that she started in Carmel, and she couldn't see fairies. Oh, she could see fairies when she was a little girl, but she lost the ability when she was 10, when her mother died. And it wasn't until she left the gardening company that her father works, the landscaping company, and spread her wings and opened her own fairy garden shop, that Fiona was able to make her way into Courtney's life. And Fiona is a righteous fairy. She got booted out of the fairy kingdom by the queen fairy because she was a bit of an imp, and she needs to help humans solve problems in order to find her way back into the fairy, the queen fairy's graces.
That's splendid. And I love the name Fiona for a fairy. That's very fey. I like it. All right. Carol, my friend, who was born on Halloween Eve in Salem, whatever inspired you to write about witches?
Well, actually, I write about the witch city, Salem, so it isn't all about witches, although a couple of the prominent characters happen to have that particular talent. My protagonist, Lee Barrett, has a different ability. She's a scryer. She discovered this when she was a child, and after some traumatic experiences with it, she lost that ability for a while. She can see images in shiny objects, often when she doesn't want to, and very often when they're things she would rather not see. So she is a reluctant scryer. It's a very handy device throughout all of the books. Book 11 will be out in the spring. She, in the beginning of her adventures, she has just returned to Salem after having a career in television in Florida. She was married to a NASCAR driver, Johnny Barrett, who unfortunately died in an automobile accident. So she's come back to Salem to live with Aunt Ibby, Isabel Russell, her aunt who has the old family home on Winter Street in Salem. And from there, the adventures took off. She in the first book, she meets a friend named River North, who happens to be a witch. She runs into some problems with the police chief of Salem, but that's why she meets Pete Mondello, who is the required handsome detective who will be with us for all of the books, little by little. And she acquires a witch's cat, that witch, fortunately for the series, got murdered in the first book. So the cat now belongs to Lee and Aunt Ibby. And the cat has remarkable clairvoyant abilities that we, even I, the author, don't completely understand the many wonderful things that Orion can do. So that was the beginning, and we follow her adventures up through the current book, which is Murder Take Two, and brings in a mystery that happened long ago, a murder in Salem, a real one, and how one in the book parallels that long ago murder.
Fascinating. Thank you, Carol. All right. And Patrice and Traci, that leaves the two of you to talk about the aspects of, obviously you both write a lot, but about the particular books that you're here for today.
Go ahead, Traci.
Oh, you want me to start? Okay.
Sure.
I'll do it. Well, we actually went to Salem because we had never been. And our book, the Mrs. Morris, the Salem Bed and Breakfast Mystery Series, takes place in Salem. And so we went. Our heroine she just had lost her husband. She was in Chicago. She moves to Salem, buys a mansion, sight unseen, to start completely over, and ends up being haunted the first night. So her sidekick is Jack, and she doesn't believe in ghosts, so she starts off absolutely terrified. But by the end of book one, they decide that they're going to stay together, and he helps her solve things. She solved his murder. Nobody thought he was murdered, so she's at odds with her handsome detective, Sam. And so she kind of has like a little love triangle going on. Anything
That
to add?
book, I'm sorry, but the first book, The Ghost of Mrs. No, The Ghost, it was sort of based on the old TV show, the Mrs. Mirror and the Ghost. That was sort of an idea that they had. And there was also another murder in that book. The ghost, his ex-wife, now she got murdered. And so it was a very intriguing book to write. And we had never done paranormal, so it was something very, fun for us to do something different.
Awesome. So you all have mentioned a few things that inspired you, whether it was actual circumstances or old TV shows or whatever. So as you work on putting together your books, can you talk a little bit about some of the interesting research that you've done, whether it's on the paranormal aspects or the mystery aspects or whatever? And we're actually going to start with Daryl this time.
I'm unmuted. Okay. Yeah. So I got interested in fairies because I was at a Renaissance fair, and I saw this woman making fairy gardens. And for those that don't know, the uninitiated, a fairy garden is sort of like doll housing for your garden. In fact, this is just a small fairy garden. Now, this is for someone who doesn't have a green thumb. It's just a teacup garden. But fairy gardening can be any size. It can be around the bowl of a tree. It can be your whole backyard. It can be inside, outside. It's so much fun. So I fell in love with fairy gardens. And as I was starting to make them, I thought, oh, wouldn't this make a lovely idea for a series if there was a fairy that was a sidekick? And what was fascinating is I write foodie mysteries. I mean, I've written the Cookbook Nook Mysteries and the French Bistro Mysteries. So to write something paranormal, that was just a little edgy, but not completely into the witch realm, was just really fun. And something that might inspire any of you that look out there is if you search for something called fairy portals online, okay, images. Fairy portals are a way to get into the fairy kingdom, and they're beautiful natural images that I fell in love with them. I could do a deep dive into fairy portals. So for research, I have to not look at fairy portals because then I won't write. They're so pretty, but take a look at them because they're energizing, and to have that imagination. I mean, I go back to being a little girl when I'm writing these, of thinking that I can see a fairy, and the fairies have powers, not like witches, but they can do potions and spells. Fiona is having to learn how to do her spells and things because, like I said, she was knocked out of the fairy kingdom. So she has to earn her wings, and she has to learn the things that will mature her into a full-fledged fairy.
Thank you. Carol, what kinds of things have you dug up as you research?
Well, of course, since we have murder involved in all of these cozy mysteries, I have had to look up some very interesting methods of murder. In one of them, I had someone die in a commercial washing machine, and I knew not the beginnings of things about commercial washing machines, so I had to learn about that. And some of the things we look up, it's a wonder we're not all on no-fly lists for the horrible. How do you garrote someone? I write, and I get the answer. And how long will it take for the body to assume room temperature under these conditions? And another thing that happens to writers who write this sort of thing. I was at a writers' conference in Fort Lauderdale, and a fellow writer and I were coming down in the elevator, which was in a hotel which hosted many people other than writers. And we almost got to our floor when I turned to Sharon and said, I've decided to kill Mr. Pennington. And with that, the elevator stopped and we got off. And I've always wondered what the people in the elevator thought and why there was not a policeman waiting for me on the ground floor. In my current, I'm doing a series, my newest series, Haunted Haven has much more of the paranormal than even the Witch City books did. So I'm having a wonderful time making things happen, because Salem is real, but my imaginary Florida city for Haunted Haven isn't. So I'm having a wonderful time with that. I adored the description of the fairy portal. You know I am going to look at that and try not to fall into it. And on a trip to Ireland once, I swear I saw fairies. And I will end with that.
I think that's an amazing way to end. Patrice and Traci, what about you all? And Patrice, do you want to lead this time since Traci answered first last time? Unmute.
Where did I go?
Am I back on? I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I have muted myself and I am reassuring you that I can hear you and you can't hear me. Yay,
Oh.
technology. I'm going to blame Daryl's fairies. Anyway.
Okay, so we started this book in Salem, and neither one of us had been there. So we had to take a trip, and we did all of the sightseeing and all those tours, and it was really, really a great city. We enjoyed the restaurants, and we stayed at the Hawthorne Hotel. I have to tell you about one incident. We had heard that there was a little boy who is or I guess he's not a ghost. He's maybe, but he's supposed to be in this hotel, and people hear him crying, and they have double checked, and there's no children who are at the hotel, guests of the hotel at that time. So this little boy crying, he was on, I think, the 5th floor. So Traci and we tiptoed up the stairs, and we walked down the hall, and we kind of listened, and didn't hear anything. And then all of a sudden there was a big bang, and we just jumped, and it was a cleaning lady coming out of the closet. So we, giggling, we just got into the elevator and laughed all the way back to our room. But also, our research is more than just finding out the details and what the streets and this and that. It also includes, finding the best martini and, the most exquisite lobster. We have to take it all in. So, yeah, so that's my spiel.
We totally suffer for our art, don't we, Patrice?
We do. It's tough.
I think that story is such a fun one at the Hawthorne Hotel. We had an amazing time seeing everything. But one of the other things that we learned was about how to make, in book 2, it's Mrs. Morris and the Witch. And we learned about glass blowing, because we had to kill somebody with this, poisonous gas. And so it was pretty amazing. And at the end of it, I was really tempted to take up, because you can get very small portable glass blowers to be able to make your own glass ornaments. And it was very, very tempting. Yeah, I don't have any time, but if I did, maybe someday.
And I feel like glass blowing is not something you can just start up during quarantine. A lot of people are crafting during quarantine, but maybe not glass blowing.
No, but you would be surprised if you had the right ventilation. I really recommend ventilation.
Good to know. All right, Bethany, research either for this or for your young adult books or any of your projects. It sounds like some of the research maybe for your other cozy series comes from your menagerie of pets.
Oh yeah, I definitely draw a lot on my menagerie for my Lucky Paws series, and I always have to have pet recipes in there, and so I always have to do a lot of research and testing and cooking treats for dogs and cats, and that's how my dog got such a discerning palate. But for my Owl Crescent Mysteries, I would say the main thing that I had to research was the types of witches, which I did not know that witches can specialize in different kinds of spells and potions. And of course, my main character, Willow, who runs a little art school in her barn, she's a arts and crafts witch, but there's also a witch who specializes in technology and one who does weather spells. And I picked those two kind of randomly, and then they ended up playing perfectly into the plot, which was kind of interesting. Um, just sort of decided what suited their personalities, and then it ended up becoming plot points too, which is always really fun when it's serendipitous like that.
Or magical even.
Or magical.
All right. So when you're working with two elements, you're working with the mystery elements, but you're also working with the paranormal or supernatural elements. What do you face in terms of conscientious limitations for your characters so that you don't just have a magical solution? Someone gets murdered and someone looks into their scrying pool and says, oh, I can see the moment of the murder and it was clearly Susan. So Carol, do you want to kick us off?
I am trying to unmute me. There I am. Because I was born and raised in Salem, although I admit that I still use Google Earth sometimes to figure out the peculiar system of one-way streets, which change from time to time. The paranormal part, because having lived there and as a child, child, starting at 13, 14, some of the best jobs to have were as guides in the various historical houses. I was a guide at the Ropes Mansion, where I developed my love of antiques and collectibles. My aunt was the docent at the Witch House, and I occasionally would guide there. So I learned witchy things there, which cost a lot of reading about those things. So once I had established that Salem was going to be my place, and I had established my creature was going to be a cat named Orion, the witch had named him Orion as in the constellation, but Lee heard it as Orion the Irish way, so he has the Irish spelling. Then the paranormal began to sift in. I researched a lot. I have a whole shelf full of books, and people keep giving them to me as gifts too. They keep giving me spells, and I really don't have any desire. You know, the first rule is do no harm, and that stuff is scary. I'm also very careful about what I say about witches. Although the only witches I have met were very nice and generally herbalist type women. I do not want to tick any witches off, so I'm very careful about the plotting and the things I use. One of my main witchy character, River North, does tarot. And that was something I really had to learn. I had to buy a deck of the cards and read 2 books on that. But it's also a wonderful device because you can, if you're shuffling them yourself, you can make them say whatever you want to. And I found that a very handy device. I guess that's enough of my witch secrets.
Thank you so much. All right, Traci and Patrice, what do you do so that you don't just have the solution presented to you by, you know, a deceased person?
Well, we actually, because like the books that I have written, I've written a series of like witch books for a young adult series before this. So am very much comfortable in the paranormal kind of world. But it was very fun for us to work together to come up with the rules for Jack. Like Jack cannot leave the bounds of the house, so he is stuck haunting the property. So he can't go with Charlene to go sleuthing. And so we have had to come up with some pretty creative ways for him to be able to be part of Charlene's investigations. I'm going to let Patrice answer more here.
Can you hear me? Okay, great. We have a cat named Silva in our stories as well. And how this cat arrived was really unusual. um, when Charlene was moving from Chicago to Salem to open up her bed and breakfast, the cat somehow got on the moving the truck that brought the furniture, and it was kind of hidden away. And then it was the ghost. It was Jack. He was out in the yard, and then he spotted this cat, and he brought it into the house. And Charlene didn't like cats, so she wanted to get rid of it. And he said, but she sees me, and nobody has ever seen me. And so the two of them have this unique, it's fun little thing going on, because he likes to, when they have the guests in the town, he always is teasing her, and with that string or something, and she's always like pawing, so all the guests think, what is going on? But it has become so much fun, and our readers are really enjoying it. The characters are so real to us. We just love them. And then we have to do, well, the one thing I'm just gonna say, Charlene she always gets herself in trouble. She's always nosing around, asking questions. And Sam, the detective, who looks like Sam Elliott, he is really tired of her putting himself in danger, and he also likes her very much. So they have lots of little things going, and it's just fun.
Bethany, sorry, I hit unmute when I meant to hit mute. How are you balancing your supernatural elements and your mystery elements so that you have suspense and you have them integrated?
That was definitely a challenge when I was developing the idea for the story, because my protagonist, Willow, if she places her hands on someone's artwork, she can kind of see into their thought processes. And so, yeah, I had to avoid having her just be able to solve the crime. So the way I did it was to limit what she's able to see to just little flashes that she kind of has to try to assemble together. And on top of that, for her to use her power is very dangerous and draining to her. She can't do it all the time. She pretty much nearly wipes herself out. Her friends worry about her when she does it. They don't want her to do it alone because it saps her energy, and that energy never comes back fully. So she has to be really judicious with using her power. She can't just go, oh, I'm going to do this every day and solve the mystery. But honestly, I think that some things in real life are more difficult in terms of not having an easy solution than the paranormal aspects. Like, everyone has a cell phone right now. So why wouldn't you just, if you need the police to come, why wouldn't you just call? Or so honestly, I think working around some of that stuff, finding a reason that your protagonist left without a cell phone or something is just as challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just watching a recent sort of end of the world-ish movie, and the protagonist doesn't reach for her cell phone until like 10 minutes in. I'm like, why didn't you do this as soon as you came out of the subway and saw that everything was on fire? Even if it was, I don't have service, wouldn't you at least?
Exactly.
All right, Daryl. So we know that Fiona has some limitations because she's not in good graces, but how else are you dealing with this aspect?
Well, Fiona is able to, because she's so small and most people do not see her. There are a few others other than Courtney that can see her. Pixie, the cat, actually, Patrice and Traci, you were talking about the cat. Pixie, the cat, can see Fiona, and occasionally Fiona just plays all over the place with her, and the cat's always on her, back hind legs trying to paw Fiona, so they have a good time. But Fiona, because she's small, she can get in and out of places, so she can hear conversations, but she, as a fairy, she is not allowed to put herself in harm's way. She cannot ever make someone tell the truth. So there are fairy limitations from the fairy world that she's not allowed to, achieve. She may be able to use a potion, but the potion may be able to just make someone calm down. So maybe they could answer questions. So it's sort of fun because I have to write all these things down because just so you know, the fairy world, they have not given me all these rules. So I don't know where they come from other than they have to be written down so I don't forget them. Even the fairy language, she now in book 2, which is called A Glimmer of a Clue and comes out next June. She's starting to grow. And so she can do potions and some spells, but she can't do the things that we would like her to be able to do. So she has to, keep finding, and Courtney has to work around those because a lot of times you just have to say, no, I'm sorry, you can't do that. Don't do that. And sometimes Fiona is off learning with her mentor. She has a mentor fairy because the mentor is trying to get her back in the good graces. There's a nice little thread that's coming on that. But because she's with her mentor, Courtney's off on her own. So Courtney may go do something that's a little dangerous without Fiona nearby. But she has friends, she has support. So it's a typical mystery, cozy amateur sleuth. But the fairy can get her in trouble and the fairy can help, but not completely to the truth. And these are the rules, and I write them down. Oh, I was going to say, she starts speaking fairy language in book 2, and I have to write down the language because it's my own. So it's Old English. I'm trying to work with Old English because I studied Old English in college. So I'm trying to work with that, but just thin it out a little bit. So it's sort of fun.
Yeah, there's nothing like having to, go do a Wikipedia search for something and then go, wait, that term's not there because I made it up. All right. One more question from me to y'all, and we'll kick off with Traci and Patrice, which is if you had access to one of the abilities or one of the entities in the paranormal supernatural realm, following, of course, as Carol mentioned, the do no harm philosophy, what would you like? What ability would you have, or what supernatural companion would you hang out with? So we'll start with Traci and Patrice.
I'll make mine simple. For me, it would be an angel. I would love to have an angel. And, I sometimes I feel like there's one on my shoulder, and I just love that. And we wrote a book about vampires, so I don't really get off on vampires, but the book turned out great. And the ghost, a friendly ghost. I live alone, and I wouldn't mind having a friendly ghost. Those would be the only two that I would think of.
Yeah, I'm with them. I actually used to do tarot card kind of stuff, and I have a very huge respect for the occult, and so I quit reading the tarot cards because you don't want to get messed with stuff that you can't handle. I think Kitchen Witch is great. Anything that you can do good. White Light is wonderful. 100% believe in all of that. And I am with Patrice. I think if we could hang out with Jack, that'd be great. He would pour us our wine. He would make sure that the guests were taken care of, make sure the lights were turned on. It would be pretty handy.
Fantastic. Bethany.
All my characters always have animal sidekicks. There are as many animals in my books as there are people. So if I was to have a supernatural sidekick, I'd probably go with the owl that watches over Willow, because owls can be surprisingly resourceful. You wouldn't think they could do that much, but he actually comes in quite handy.
Yay, and possibly could hitch a ride to Rockefeller Center, because apparently that's a thing. I don't know if y'all saw that, but the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree had a stowaway, possibly put in the tree by a ghost, if you follow Traci and Patrice's thing. Daryl, how about you?
Well, because I have a fairy, I mean, I love to fly. I fly in my dreams. So I would love the ability to fly and fly everywhere and get in and out of little places. But one of the things I would love most is fairies have healing powers, and they can heal with herbs. They're very, very close to nature. I would love to be able to heal anybody I want to heal. I would love to be that. That would just be so magical to me, to just wave my little wand and say, you're done, you're over it, it's good, you're good to go. And just throw all this positivity into the world. So that's something I would love to do. And I'm sure there are a lot of doctors that would like to do that too. And I know it's not possible, but in my books, it might be.
I think that's a great wish for a pandemic, for sure. Mm-hmm. All right, Carol, what about you? You mentioned that you're gifted with spells sometimes.
I was thinking about the animals. I would like to have a cat like Orion. No offense, Shadow, you're a lovely girl. But Orion is endlessly fascinating to me, because I have not figured out how he does what he does. And in the new book, the new series, which I'm working on now, the Haunted Haven series, my main animal character is a golden retriever who is just a really very agreeable dog. He doesn't have any vocabulary other than woof, but he accents it so nicely that we seem to know what he's saying. But I also have introduced several cats, one who is a bookshop cat, and his name is Earl Stanley Gardner. And one of the people who has died and left my protagonist a number of things, including two cats named Bogey and Bacall. Now, for a gift that I would like to have for myself, it's not one of the paranormal or magical gifts, but one of my characters is Lee Barrett's Aunt Ibby. And Aunt Ibby is she's 60 something, that she admits to. She's quite attractive. She is a research librarian and is also very tech savvy. I wish I was a research librarian or had been in some life or other, and I am not tech savvy at all. So I would like to have Aunt Ibby, and a number of my readers have expressed that same wish. They all want an Aunt Ibby, so that would be my wish.
Well, librarians are the best. We are eternally enthusiastic about them. All right, so the first question that we have in the Q&A is Bethany specific, but I think we'll start with Bethany and let everyone answer. The question is about whether there's a date for a new Lucky Paws book, but let's just call this generally what's up next from you. So we'll start with Bethany.
Oh, I know. My next Lucky Paws book was actually supposed to come out this spring, I guess. But I also have a full-time job working for a healthcare organization, and obviously things have been just crazy at my other position. So that book is in the works, but there's no specific date for it because I have a plan for some things to do, some reader engagement before it comes out too, just some fun ideas to thank all the people who supported the series. So there's like a little bridge that's supposed to happen between the last book and the next book. So yeah, it's probably looking at like a year before it comes out. That's, yeah.
Fair enough. So shortly after it's finished and there are obstacles to doing so.
Yes.
And Daryl.
Okay. Well, as I said, the second in the Fairy Garden Mystery series, A Glimmer of a Clue, comes out in June. And the 10th Cookbook Nook Mystery, Whining and Dying, will come out in the spring. It's not yet available for pre-order, though A Glimmer of a Clue is. So the different publishers, we work at different schedules. And I'm hoping that I will have another suspense come out. I also write suspense, and I had a suspense come out this last year. Well, actually, last month, Cold Conviction, and I'm hoping that there will be more suspense in my future. So there are all sorts of things on the table, but those are the two specific next year.
Fantastic. All right. Carol, what's up next?
The first book in the Haunted Haven series is due at the publishers at the end of December, and I am racing to get it there. Now, the book 11 of the Witch City Mystery series will be out in the spring. That's all set to go. And then the next book on my schedule after the book 1 of Haunted Haven will be book 12 of Witch City Mysteries, which will probably be a fall release in 2021, and then book 2 of Haunted Haven. And the only trouble with writing two, people sometimes ask if it's difficult to do 2 series at the same time. The main problem I've had is that Witch City Mysteries are all in first person, and Haunted Haven is in third person. So I occasionally write I when I should have said she, but we find that in time to fix it up.
Terrific. Yeah, point of view can be tricky. Traci and Patrice, what's next on your release lists?
Well, you have to unmute. Unmute. Are you going to unmute?
Answered part of it. Our next book, the 4th book in the series, will be, it's going to be released end of March. And let me see, we have another one written, and that would be probably November, I would think. It seems to be like every 6 months they're putting one of our books out. Yeah. So we have 6 books in the works, and we're just hoping to get more.
Yeah, you guys have so many in your series. We're hoping that it will work out for us too. The next one is Mrs. Morris and the Sorceress, and then it's Mrs. Morris and the Vampire, and then it's Mrs. Morris and Pot of Gold. Yeah, I think Pot of Gold. And personally, I write the Murder in a Scottish Shire series, and that first book that came out in June. The next one will be out in April. And then Patrice and I are actually doing like an indie series because we love writing together so much that we're going to try to launch that in January. And then we have a lot going on. We're doing it.
Well, I have to say, I'm impressed actually by people's productivity. I mean, certainly it sounds like Bethany is being very productive in writing, but not necessarily writing for herself, writing in her day job. But, as the past 8+ months have gone by, certainly there's been a variety of responses of whether or not people are finding quarantine and the pandemic to allow for more writing time, or whether it's kept them from feeling as productive. So it's exciting that there are as many works to look forward from you all as we've heard about. We have a request from Larissa, who says that she would love to hear more real life ghost and fairy stories if there's time and anyone has any to share. Daryl.
Okay. I actually have a ghost story, and it doesn't go to anything in my book. But I was thinking of throwing it somehow into my book, because you guys, Traci and Patrice, you mentioned the little boy that was, in the hotel. My mother was a realtor, and way back when, she told me that there was a little boy that lived in this house that she was trying to sell. And every time she took somebody into this house, a ball would come down the stairs. And that was it. It's just, and she'd hear footsteps, and then it was done. But a ball would, you're getting chills, right? It gives me chills every time I think, but this little ball would go boom, 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 stop at the people's feet, little footsteps, and then gone. And it wasn't a scary ghost. It wasn't you didn't have to exorcise it. It just, and she did history on it. She couldn't find who that little boy might have been. And it's so sad. So I would love to have something like solving a ghost story in one of my fairy mysteries, because I think that that's something that Fiona could really attach herself to, because she can find those other spirits. So you mentioned that, and it was like, oh, that really does play into something that I would like to do. But Fiona is she's going to expand her universe. She has more fairies coming in, and my editor only wanted one fairy in the first book, but I had so many people write, please, will you give more fairies? So she does make a friend, but she can't see. She's not allowed to socialize with fairies. She can only do good with fairies. She can only work with her fairy mentor. So it's a real nice little universe for her. But yeah, I would love to see a fairy. I'm sure I did when I was a girl.
You'll have to visit some of the fairy portals and see if you have any luck.
I intend to.
Excellent. Anybody else? Carol.
Yeah. Am I alive?
Yes.
I once lived in a haunted house in Gloucester, Massachusetts, and it definitely was really haunted. My children saw the ghost first. My boys shared a room, and my oldest boy would come into my room at night and say, Mama, a guy just came out of my closet. And I would tell him he was just having a dream. Until one night, the guy came out of my closet, and he was a full manifestation. And it is a longer story than that, but next time we meet, I will tell you the rest of it.
Wow. So I'm in Southern California, and it's, Southern California in November, so it's plenty warm, but I have goosebumps. Any others?
I did see fairies.
Carol, I just want to, hear about your personal life. I mean, your cozy mysteries are awesome, but I am fascinated by all of your personal experiences. All right, so we are almost at the top of the hour, and I want to thank everybody. I particularly want to thank our panelists. Uh, uh, I want to thank bookseller Lauren, who's been very helpful in putting links to the panelists' books in the chat. Also, at one point during the chat, I did see a couple of comments go by about enjoying some of the narrators of the audiobooks. And so I'm delighted to know that people are enjoying those as well. And thank you all so much for being here. And thank you for undertaking this virtual version of the Cozy Con and ending your cozy mystery road trip with us. So take care and be safe and be well.
Thank you. You did a great job.
Thanks, Daryl.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you so much. I had a great time. It was nice seeing everybody.
You too.
It was
Same
really
Thank you guys.
And
Yeah,
Carol, I
thank you.
read your first book, The Witch City. It was amazing. And I wish I had your Aunt Ibby too.
And I have read yours.
Listen. I'm going to be checking out you guys too. And I'm a foodie, so I can't wait to dive in. And I love the witch stuff. So I'll be buying.
Fine. This will be fun.
You guys have a nice day.